some of the examples of factorization using those identities, right? And once we're done with that, I'll take some questions like we'll do together, so you can talk to each other, or that would be basically a guided practice. And after that, you will get a worksheet where you have to work independently, right? And towards the last 15 minutes, you will have to check in on what you have covered in last class, right? So, get this warm-up here. After you do this warm-up, you're going to write on the formula, and you get only 10 minutes to do this. So you can say, if you have, I will start with easy one. You start with a squared, b squared if you have x squared minus y squared. Can I use same analogy? Can I use the identity that I had before? So here, I would say x plus y, x minus y directly, right? Because I can see two perfect squares here, right? Sometimes instead of number, instead of variable, you can also see a number there, say 36. And that's the reason why I say, if you could know perfect square number, when you see this one, how can I also rewrite this? X squared minus, first let's write on this as perfect square. What is this?
6 squared.
6 squared, right? Is it same as the one of the identities that you have learned? So here what can I do? X plus 6, x minus 6. And if you write x minus 6 also, that's okay. Does it make sense? So that's the reason why I also made you remember some of the perfect square numbers, right? Is it clear? How do you do if you have this minus b square? Is that a perfect square, first of all?
Yeah.
Let's look at this one. Is it a perfect square? How do you know it's a perfect square if you have a variable?
The one we did before.
Yeah, I made you to write this in perfect square form, but how do you know whether this is perfect square or not? Okay, to know for variable if it is perfect square or not, look at the exponent. If your exponent is even, then that's perfect square. If your exponent, say, if you have x to the power of 7, that's an odd exponent, right? So that is not a perfect square. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yeah.
So if I see even, I can always write down that as a perfect square. If I have odd, I cannot write down that as a perfect square. Clear? So how can I rewrite this? X to the power of 6. How can I rewrite this?
X to the power of 3.
Yes, as you did before, x to the power of 3 whole square minus b square. Now do you see two perfect square?
Yeah.
Can you use that identity? So that's the reason why we learned identity, so we can use, so this is my a, right? Minus b. And this, I can do plus here and minus, it really doesn't matter whichever you do. Is it clear? What if you have this? A number and variable.
Well, that's okay, right? Sorry.
So can I write this as a perfect square? What would this be as perfect square form? Because you know 4 is perfect square, a is also perfect square, right? Can you just see? Yes, you're at 2a. But if I write a square only, then that square is only for a, right? So to make sure both of them are actually perfect square, I use parenthesis or bracket. Does it make sense? So when you have a mixed number and variable, make sure to put bracket. Is it clear? So 2a whole square minus, do I need to put bracket here? I have variable only, so it's good to go, right? This way. And then you can again use same identity. What is that equals to?
2a plus b.
2a plus b, 2a minus b. Clear? Alright. So for perfect square identity, these are the things you need to know. Okay, I'll just leave it here on the board, so if you need to follow, you can actually look at these questions. What I want, I'll give you two questions here and we'll do together, right? I might ask some of you to explain like how can you rewrite this as perfect square form. Actually, I need to do this. I need to erase this. Is it okay if I erase this? Right? Is it okay? You want? Yeah. If you want to take picture quickly, you can take. Or because like writing it will take some time.
It looks like 46.
Yeah, I'm going to. You don't get like a number which is not perfect square. You don't get that. Don't worry about that. Is it okay if I erase now? Alright. So let's work together. We'll work. Or so you can see. You can see it. Okay, now let's work on one questions together.
I love math.
Okay, now, Ethina, tell me what is this? How can you write a to the power 4 as perfect square?
A square square.
Okay, a square is square, right? Okay, Garrett, tell me how do you write 9b square? First of all, is it a perfect square?
Yeah.
How can you write that as perfect square? 9b square. Is 9 a perfect square number?
Yes.
It's a perfect square of 3 and b square even, right? So that's a perfect square. So how can you write this as perfect square?
3.
3,
Parentheses.
3b,
Parentheses 2.
yes, and you say square, right? Not 2, you say square. Make sense? Now, is it in the form a square minus b square? Is that in the form? So what do I do next? Okay, Prasad, what do I do next?
I can get rid of the square.
Sorry?
The outside parentheses. Right?
Yes, a square plus b, 3b, right?
Yeah.
And a square minus 3b. Is that clear? Because this is, the whole thing is my a, this is my b. If I compare this with a square minus b square,
I have a question.
yes. Yeah.
I don't understand why. I understand why you do it, but like, how do you know when to do it? Like when you put positive and negative.
Okay, that's a good question. When do we use this one, right? So this identity is difference of perfect square, right? Do I see this as a perfect square number? Do I see this as a perfect square number?
Yeah.
And there is negative, right? So whenever I see this difference of perfect square, I will use this identity directly. So that's the advantage. Instead of doing step by step, you can directly jump, right? Okay, so let's do one more question.
Okay.
(16 minus b square). Okay, this time I'm going to ask again. Is this a perfect square? 16. It's a perfect square of 4. So can I say this is 4 square? Can I? And then you have b square, right? Is it in the form of this identity? A square minus b square. Right? What is that equals to then?
So be 4 squared minus. No. Yeah. 4 squared.
You remember this identity? This is a plus b, a minus b.
Oh,
Right? So what do I do now here?
4 squared plus.
4 square or just 4?
Just 4.
Yes, 4 plus b and 4 minus b. Make sense? Is it clear? Okay. So I'm going to distribute this worksheet. You don't have to do all of them. Can you actually work on A, B, C and D only? Question number 1, A, B, C, D.